Good afternoon. Today is the 13th of March, and as I mentioned earlier on in the week, it's time for some viewer questions. Now, a lot of you have left the questions on the community page, or you've commented on Monday's video, and that's wonderful. So we'll go through these in order, and I'll try to answer these as best you can. Hopefully you'll find it interesting. The first question comes from Max Rider. If you were rich and had the ability to do so, which old, discontinued or classic car would you love to restart production of? Simple answer to that, I would like to continue production of a Rev 75. Now, that had quite a long production life in China after being discontinued in this country in 2005, but we never saw any of that. We were treated instead to Silence and then the MG6, which never quite lived up to what it should have been. It's a good car in some ways, but the 75 in some ways is better. So I think that's probably an obvious answer for many of you, but there we go. Joseph from Ashraf on Cars says, congratulations. Oh, thank you, sir. What sports car would you buy for under £5,000? Now, the obvious answer to this is a Mazda MX-5. I've driven a Mazda MX-5 Mark II and a half on my channel. You can see the video if you look that up. I did that back in November. But I think I'm going to go classic, and I'm going to say a Triumph Spitfire. Probably the Triumph Spitfire 1500, which was the last generation of Spitfire, made between 75 and 1980. I really like those, particularly in green. If I can fit in one of those, then I would love to have one. Next question comes from James Sawyer. Congratulations on your subscriber count. Well, thank you once again, sir. Let the good word get out. I'm sure 2,000 will come around soon. Well, I do hope so. In your opinion, which nation makes the most reliable cars? Thank you. I hate to be really boring, but I think probably still Japan. Having been to the country myself and seeing how everything works, that was quite recently actually. I think they are very reliable cars there. South Korea is a very, very close second though, and I think the warranties that a lot of companies have, in both these countries, Mitsubishi have got a 5-year warranty, as of Toyota. If you go to South Korea, you'll find that Kia has a 7-year warranty, as do SsangYong, and Hyundai also have a 5-year warranty. So all these nations really, all these companies of these two nations really believe in the quality of their cars. MG have a 7-year warranty as well, but because that's a sort of cheaper brand than a lot of the others, I'm not saying cheap as in nasty, I'm just saying the cars are not as expensive as the others. I think we just have to see as things go, is whether they're going to be reliable as, say, you know, Honda, Mazda, Toyota, Hyundai, Kia, whatever. But those are the two nations I think at the moment which are sort of forging ahead. Others are not too far behind as well. Those are just the two that come to mind. One of my regular viewers, Andy G, says, in your job as an independent vehicle consultant, is there a vehicle that you have found almost impossible to find for a customer? And congratulations on 1,100 subscribers. Thank you once again, sir. I'm going to answer this in two parts. I did have a situation a while ago where I'd been asked by a friend to source a car for someone, do a deal for him. And I did happen to find a car, rather actually he found it because he wanted to do it himself. And he wanted me to sort everything out for him. Now, he wanted the car on finance, and we had to put in a deposit and everything. The particular car that he was looking at was up in a dealership quite a long way away. So I didn't go and see it or anything because it wasn't worth my time. It was literally a paperwork and phone exercise for me, which is, you know, I don't mind doing, but it's not really what I normally do. It so happened that actually he couldn't have the car, so because his credit was bad and they wouldn't give it to him. So, I mean, that's that's a car that's impossible to find for somebody, not for the reason of availability, but literally because he didn't have the money to pay for it. So yeah, that was another impossible thing. Sometimes people will come to you and say, I want a car to do certain things, and this is the model that I've been told is good. And then you say, well, you can't afford a good example of one of those. I had a client a while ago who wanted something like a Skoda Yeti, but there just weren't any of the specification for the sort of money which she wanted to pay. And that is just a fact of life. Sometimes you have to go cheaper to find something, and you have to be realistic. But those are, I think, two answers I would give to that question. So those were the questions from the community post. Let's now go on to some questions from the video itself. We'll start with Colin Hicks. I haven't had a chance to watch all the early videos. Yes, there are a lot of them. I, don't blame you for that. So this may have been answered already. Why don't you talk about diesels? That's a very, very good question. Ignoring all political stuff, sorry, I'm just reading through here. With some manufacturers, certain points for diesels are better than the petrols. For example, the pre-2018 Kia Ceed, I'd probably buy the diesel. Post-2018 1.4 turbo, this is the real-world performance. Likewise, for BMW, unless I was buying an M version, I would stick with a 2-litre diesel. Quick and efficient in some tunes, more powerful 2-litre petrol. Obviously, if you live in certain areas, diesel's not the way to go. I've also been looking at hybrids. Any plan to test those? Kia, Toyota, Hyundai. It's a long question, but I think we can deal with the last bit. Actually, we're going to deal with first. There is a review of a Toyota Prius hybrid on my channel. I filmed it September last year. I think it was uploaded the same month. So yes, I have tested a hybrid car. I've also tested a BMW i3 range extender, which is a sort of opposite way around plug-in hybrid. I would like to do more of it. I'd like to do I might be able to do a Kia Niro. I might have access to one of those. Obviously I've got, it depends if somebody wants to lend me their car, but yes, I do plan testing them. I've got no problem with having hybrids. It's just I haven't got round to them yet. Second part of the question, actually the first bit you mentioned, why don't we talk about diesels on the channel? This is a running joke, but it's been there since the very first video that I ever did, which was the review of my 2017 Seat Toledo. Now, when we were filming the video, it's actually very difficult when you're doing a video to talk coherently and drive at the same time. And sometimes you just forget things. You just forget items of information. And when I was talking about the engines available in the Toledo, I got through all the petrol absolutely fine, got all the information correct. And then we got to the diesels, and I could remember the engine size, which was 1.4, 1.6, but I could not remember the power outputs. And so, just in a split second, as like a throwaway joke, because I didn't want to have to make a mistake, I just said, we don't talk about them. And that was it. I just thought, actually, the current zeitgeist, I mean, more than a year before that, I bought Toledo as a replacement for a diesel car, because living in Epsom, where we were at the time, it's not very far away from this, sort of in London and things like that. It's not a long time to get into London from there. And I thought, with the way things are going, perhaps this is a good joke to put in the videos. So there we go. It's just the way that it is. And a lot of my viewers don't really like them anyway. I don't particularly mind them. I mean, I sourced a diesel car for a client yesterday. They do have their place. They honestly do. But it's becoming more and more of a specialty market for really large cars, or people who do very high mileage. The majority of people for newer cars are turning towards the lower capacity petrol engines with turbos, and also hybrids and plug-in hybrids. So yeah, I know it's a silly joke and everything, but that seems to be the way that things are going. They have their place, but that's the joke that we do, and some people find it quite funny. There we go. Next question's from Rob from the We Shall Face YouTube channel, who supplied the Jaguar X-Type that you would have seen recently, and also the Mazda MX-5 that I filmed for True Jacket Reviews in November last year. Rob asks, what did you do before becoming an independent vehicle consultant? I actually, for many years, was a charity administrator. I worked for a number of Christian charities on a self-employed basis. I used to organise big events. I used to handle email distribution. I used to do social media. I did all kinds of things, whatever was really required in that way. I was self-employed, so as I am now. So it wasn't a massive difference in that way. Also, for many, many years, I've been helping my mother, who has some properties that she owns, which was family inheritance that we got about 20 years ago now. I don't know, it's more than that. It's about 30 now. And so I help her deal with the properties. I help her with those a couple of days a week. So you see a lot of videos that I make at her house because I happen to be there. Sometimes in her car because she lets me use it sometimes. And that's it. That's what I've been doing for a long time. I scaled down the charity work, which would have been about 6 months ago now, because I wanted to concentrate more on, doing my job with sourcing cars, and also doing some videos on the channel. So that's it, really. One final question we've got here, and it's a really, really good question, actually, from Trabelli, one of my regular viewers. He says, my question was going to be a continuation from the last question, scenario, mission that I gave you. Remember, Time Machine Rover Chairman. But you might be getting a little sick of my slightly eccentric questions. Never. I never get sick of questions like this. I'll keep it simple. You've come into some money, Mr. Lloyd. I don't ask how, you just have. Maybe it just grows on trees. Who knows? You have a lot of money, about £50 million. You have a large house similar to Bewley. I was at Bewley last month, so perhaps I like it down there. With a large garage that could hold many cars. Money is now no object. That's always nice. And the space in the garage is filling up with classic cars. You can pick 2 classic cars from each decade, from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, excluding the Jaguar E-Type. That's important for your private collection. Right. That's a very, very, very interesting question to answer. First of all, I would probably go with a Riley 1.5. I really like those. My mother had a Morris Minor, so it's quite natural for me to want one of those that would produce to the mid 50s onwards. So that's one from the 50s. Secondly, we're going to have to go for another Jaguar, and go for a Mark II Jaguar, I think. The Mark 1s, some of the handling was pretty bad, but the Mark 2s had a bit of a wider track, and so they handled a bit better, and they were introducing 959. So I'll have my fix, and I'll get myself a nice Mark II Jaguar. I can't remember when the 3.8's come out, but if a 3.8 wasn't out in 959, I'll have a 3.4, and otherwise I'll have a 3.8. For the 60s, right, we're going to go for a Lancia Fulvia. There's a beautiful Lancia Fulvia in Department S. It's one of the main cars in Department S. If you haven't already seen that video, I do talk about it. It's actually the thumbnail image of the video from that old TV series from the 60s. I think it's UBY 96F. The other car that I'm going to pick will be the Mark 1 Triumph 2000, not the 2.5 Pi, but 2000. I've always liked those. I think they're brilliant cars, but not a lot of money for what they are. I think the engineering at Triumph 2000 is very, very good. I'd have one of those. 70s, I'm going to go for the Rover 2200. For some reason, I'd prefer the 4-cylinder models. I don't really know why. Mr. Richardson from Furious Driving has both a 4-cylinder and a 3.5 litre model. I prefer the look of the later P6s, sort of 73 onwards. I think I prefer those. I'd have a nice dark green one of those. I don't know whether I want an automatic or manual. I'll have to drive one at some point and see how they are. But yes, it's the 70s. Then I'll have myself a lovely Mark II Ford Granada, possibly a Gear X. I don't know whether I want an injection or a carburettor one. But yes, they've made some lovely, lovely high spec Granadas, just like in the professionals, so I'll have one of those. Next, go to the 1980s and choose a lovely Ford Capri. I would adore to have a Ford Capri. I know the 3 litre S is the car that is in the professionals, but I'm going to go for a Brooklands 280 because they're just wonderful. I could be tempted by Tickford, but I don't know if the body kit on a Tickford ruins the look of the Capri really. So I'd have to go for a Capri 280. So those are really wonderful, and we'll sort of finish that off by going for, I think, a Volkswagen Jetta, a very nice Mark II Jetta. I think the big bumper Jetta came in about 89. A nice high spec one, probably I think it's the GTI or GLI, the top spec Volkswagen Jetta. I really like one of those. So a bit of an unusual list there, but I hope you enjoyed that. So there we go. Your question answered, part 6. It's hard to think we've done so many of these, but as long as you keep asking the questions and you enjoy these Q&A videos, then we'll keep making more. So thank you ever so much indeed for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. And don't forget to like this video, to leave a comment below. My Facebook page is facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. And of course, if you wish me to source a car for you, then visit my website, www.lloydvehicleconsulting.co.uk. There is a contact tab on the front page of the website for you to get in touch should you wish to do so. Thank you.